This video is brought to you by Mubi. Great cinema at your fingertips. Stream anytime, anywhere. Maybe what is the most overwhelming thing about the wine mom trope is how pervasive it is. Once you notice it, you see it everywhere. In sitcoms, in dramas, in movies, on social media, family-friendly, unrated, R-rated. The wine mom persists in every iteration. The wine mom exists in every universe. Even Game of Thrones, a show set in a fictional medieval times world, has characters cracking wine mom jokes.
Can we bring you anything to eat or drink? I wish we had some wine for you. It's a bit early in the day for us.
What you say?
We're going to deconstruct the wine mom in all of her forms across different mediums and genres, outline how these depictions have changed over time, explore how media shapes our perceptions of different drinks, and figure out if reality informs media or if media informs reality. But first, a quick spoiler warning for the following. In my video on Modern Family, I talk about how the show's humor largely stems from satirized stereotypes of each of its characters. For Claire Dunphy, she was written as the uptight suburban mom, who tries to make every day special for her kids and needs control. It doesn't matter how beautiful she is or how incredible she looks for her age. If Claire's character's shtick is uptight suburban mom, the jokes around her are going to be written with every stereotype or common insecurity that comes with it. This includes, but is not limited to, the mom who drinks a lot of wine.
It's dark. We shared an entire bottle of wine.
It is dark. I didn't see you do air quotes around shared.
On one hand, these jokes are quick jabs at Claire's expense, in a way not dissimilar to how the series frequently pits her against other women, despite being an absolute 10, or makes fun of her appearance, again, despite being an absolute 10, or finds new ways to call her old, even though, canonically, her husband making these jokes is at least 2 years older.
Second grader bouncing around the neighborhood.
When did you get so old?
Oh.
I mean, I love you!
In his book, The Queer Fantasies of the American Family Sitcom, Tyson Pugh outlines the wine mom trope in Claire Dunphy from Modern Family. He writes, a recurring humorous trope hints at Claire's alcoholism to paint her as the stereotype of the alienated suburban mother. Phil tells Claire that he and Dee Dee,
A long talk last night after you and I split that bottle of wine and you fell asleep on the stairs.
employing scare quote fingers around split and fell asleep to suggest that she drank the entire bottle and passed out. When Gloria says that Claire, who has chipped her tooth, sounds drunk on her Election Day radio interview, Haley counters,
That's not her drunk voice.
which suggests that she has heard her mother's drunk voice numerous times before. Later, after losing the election, Claire says,
I don't know about you, but, I could use a glass of wine.
to which Luke replies,
Now you're gonna hear her drunk voice.
the humor of Claire's suburban alcoholism, which never threatens her children or her marriage, depends on a stereotype of the emotionally unsatisfied suburban housewife, a Stepford wife who drinks away the pain of her existence. There's a lot to unpack here, but this line, which never threatens her children or her marriage, is key. Alcohol never leads Claire to being abusive or unfaithful or, well, an actual problem. Like many of Modern Family's jokes, the ones about Claire's drinking are told in passing, quick, poke-and-run wittiness that is as integral to the show as its iconic misunderstandings and double entendres. These quips are harmless because the only person that Claire's alcoholism affects is Claire, and not enough for it to be anything more than immediately brushed off and forgotten about.
Why did they need you out of the house?
Well, they said it was some sort of therapy, but part of me thinks it's an intervention for Mom. So, how's school?
The sitcom Wine Mom is allowed to unravel just enough to be funny, but not enough to actually have or be a problem. These lines elicit easy, cheap laughs. But if we deconstruct them, we can see the joke is simply and entirely that she drinks a lot. That's it. That is the whole joke. More than that, they are only punchlines, told so fleetingly, never fully examined, never picked apart, never actually a part of a plot's narrative. This is a staple for most sitcoms that have a wine mom character. The same could just as easily be said for Kitty Foreman in That 70s Show, where her drinking problem just makes her funny. There are enough jokes about Kitty's drinking in the series to fit into a 4-minute-long compilation on YouTube with nearly 300,000 views.
All right, Kitty, don't panic. You know what to do.
Kitty's drinking has sparked laughter, memes, and unlicensed fan-made merchandise. Like Claire, the series treats her dependence on alcohol as a humorous quirk that only becomes more indistinguishable from her character as the seasons progress. A less family-friendly sitcom, Rick and Morty, leans into darker jokes surrounding its wine mom, Beth Smith. Despite Modern Family and Rick and Morty being different in tone, premise, target audience, and characters, Claire and Beth have surprisingly a lot in common in the earlier seasons. And not just that they have more fun. In their teens, Claire and Beth both accidentally became pregnant by their dorky high school boyfriends, whom they consequently married at a young age, largely out of societal expectations, and who their dads don't exactly approve of. Both Claire and Beth kept the baby, who in both shows we know and are introduced to as the teenage daughter. And of course, Claire and Beth both frequently drink copious amounts of wine, which the shows make jokes about, albeit in very different ways. There are some key differences. At the start of the series, Beth has a career as a successful horse surgeon, while Claire is a stay-at-home mom. But both characters feel like they're missing something, or missing out on something in their lives.
No luck involved, hombre. She saw she liked, she got pregnant, she had to.
Somewhere along the way, I lost that wide-eyed girl from Muskegon.
A tiny part of me just wanted to sort of peek through the window and see the life that might have been.
And while their respective husbands' personalities, careers, and likability may strongly differ, the way both shows use humor towards them is very similar. Basically, most of the jokes involving Phil and Jerry revolve around their perceived stupidity, being clueless, dumb, or oblivious.
Sweetie, is your shirt on backwards?
Yeah, I like it this way. I'm not stupid.
I thank you, Phil.
Okay.
No, wait, Phil. That's how she says Phil, not feel.
Claire and Beth are spared from jokes that play on their lack of intelligence because they don't lack intelligence. They are allowed to be smart, but it comes at the expense of being self-aware. It's this self-awareness that lets them understand how unfulfilled they really are. Now, it's important to acknowledge that in both Modern Family and Rick and Morty, the episodes engaging in these conflicts make a point to conclude by the end that Claire and Beth are both happy in their choices and don't have any regrets. Maybe this would have a stronger impact if the jokes weren't continuously written after each resolution is made. Yet, these issues continue to manifest in quips and B-plots often enough that, for Beth and Claire, perpetual discontentment and wondering what if becomes quiet but defining traits of their characters. Over the years, through these iterations, we've been able to understand this trope enough to build jokes around it. Saturday Night Live has a sketch starring Adie Bryant as a middle-aged suburban mom, celebrating her birthday with friends, drinking wine, and opening presents. All of her friends get her those kitschy Wine Mom signs that are everywhere in Home Goods or Michaels, like, "Wine a little, laugh a lot," or, "Oh look, it's wine o'clock."
Wine gets better with age. I get better with wine. Okay, guilty.
As she continues opening the gifts, the signs progressively get more intense, going from these innocent, self-effacing jokes to candidly stating her serious drinking problem.
Hey, barkeep, I want to die tonight. Wow.
It's so interesting that before we even get to the joke of the sketch, even before the signs take a darker turn, when we're first seeing the signs that you really would find at Michael's, the studio audience still laughs at them.
I had to read this one twice. Can you drunk how tell I am?
What's pivotal here is that the audience is not laughing at the jokes and the signs that the suburban moms find funny. They're laughing at how earnest the women are towards these corny signs. The humor comes from a place of almost loving condescension.
You guys know how much I love art. That is so dang...
There's something innocent and sweet about how there's a brand of suburban moms that genuinely like these signs, hang them up in their homes, and stand in the kitchen in their robes and giggle at them unironically. As the signs get more and more specific, deadpan, and hilarious, Adie's character grows more offended.
We all drank during lockdown. We're all just moms having fun, aren't we?
Each time she tries to confront her friends, they only brush her off and laugh it off, encouraging her to open more presents. I know it's just so they can keep the joke rolling, but the other women being unwilling to see or acknowledge the signs as anything but cute and funny jokes is just so representative of the entire Wine Mom culture. We have to see the jokes, because if it's not funny, it's serious, and it can never be serious. Because really, what is Kitty admitting she drinks too much without a laugh track? What is the passing quip about Claire passed out on the stairs if we stay with it for more than a second? What are these signs if the cutesy, punny, jokingly fed-up humor is taken away?
I don't see the joke in that one, though.
Now, in dramas, humor isn't a requisite. This genre covers a wide range of mothers drinking wine. But in the past decade, some new ones have emerged. There's the thriller, Rear Window-inspired subgenre, which usually involves white women witnessing a murder and then being gaslighted by the police because of their drinking problem or pill addiction. These movies include The Girl on the Train, The Woman in the Window, and the Kristen Bell Netflix parody, The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window, which really highlights the extent these characters drink wine.
The truth is that I drink a lot.
In the realm of wealthy drama shows, a specific archetype has emerged in the past few years, the rich white lady. Others have pinned down what exactly makes this character and show so recognizable through its many iterations. It's not always Nicole Kidman, but it's Nicole Kidman a lot. Over the past decade, she's become the actress most associated with this type of character. Complex, intelligent, haunted, rich, and she's leaned into it by design. For one, she's intentionally busy. At a Cannes press conference in 2017, Nicole Kidman took a pledge to work with at least one female director every 18 months, and since then, in that 8-year span, she has worked with 19 female directors. We love to see it. But also, she really loves these kinds of stories. According to the Chicago Tribune, Jennifer Salke, the head of Amazon Studios, who Nicole Kidman's production company has a first look deal with, said that Nicole Kidman told her she wanted to make the kind of, quote, sexy date night movies that no one's making anymore, like No Way Out or Cruel Intentions. Those kind of, I need to stay home and just drink wine with my girlfriend or my boyfriend, husband, and watch this. This is really Nicole's thing. End quote. Both of these movies revolve around rich people being immoral. There's sex and murder and suspense and plot twists and, well, pretty much everything Nicole Kidman's been working on for the past decade. The kickoff in this flurry of shows was Big Little Lies, an HBO drama that largely revolves around unmasking the seemingly perfect lives of upper-class women and their families in Monterey, California. They live in multi-million-dollar beachfront houses, wear designer clothes, and yes, drink a lot of wine. Wine is mentioned so frequently in the scripts that it may as well be its own character. Like many of these types of shows, Big Little Lies is heavily rooted in atmosphere, with sensual cinematography and carefully curated acoustic songs. As romantic as the show looks, not all of it is romanticized. The way the series approaches SA and domestic abuse is poignant and deliberate. That being said, for Big Little Lies and shows like Big Little Lies, the conflict that is less delicate and more dramatic is framed within a more histrionic lens. The glass of Cabernet in the character's manicured hands denotes luxury, maturity, and class, yes, but beyond these qualities, it also serves as a theatrical prop that adds to the tone and elevates the reflective main character moment. Quite simply, it's for the aesthetic. An example of this is when Madeline, played by Reese Witherspoon, deals with the emotional aftermath of her teenage daughter moving in full-time with her father and Madeline's ex-husband. In the script, the scene reads, Madeline sips red wine from a glass, staring at nothing, just the ocean and the moon, as Neil Young continues to sing of love that endures, eternal and unwavering as the bountiful moon. Off Madeline, numb, expressionless, empty. We fade to black. So this was originally written as the tense last scene of the 3rd episode. All cards on the table here, if we're speaking on a technical screenwriting level, this scene would be considered indulgent in its wordiness. It's overly descriptive. Nothing really changes in the story if it's cut, which it was. But its excess is kind of the point. It's moody and atmospheric and theatrical in a stagnant way, incredibly representative of the series' tone. Where screenwriting students are taught to never get too detailed, detail is everything here. The glass of red wine, the moon, the ocean, Madeline's descriptive, descriptionless face, and, this part. It's a moment from a music video. What this paragraph does more than anything is help paint the dramatic, Dionysian picture that defines this subgenre. And the glass of red wine is a key supporting character here in conveying what this scene really is. Picked apart, that's what this trope boils down to. The aesthetic of suffering. In a similar regard, it's not entirely different from the way some people boast about working 15-hour days. Underneath the fatigue and exasperation, there's an undeniable thread of pride in their voice, a masochistic satisfaction in the stress, a sense of achievement. It's hard to deny that as a society, we have a tendency to romanticize stress, to be almost conditioned to find gratification in anxiety. So it's not really surprising that this carries over into the stories we consume. Conflict is as integral to a good story as a subject and a predicate are to a complete sentence. Essentially, if you're stressed out, you're compelling. If you're worried about something, you have something worth worrying about. In hustle culture, being busy is the same thing as being important. For the moms on television, hurriedly pouring a glass of wine means they have problems that are worthy of an audience. In short, they are interesting. And honestly, that glass of wine says as much about the show's atmosphere as the story itself. Which makes sense, because in shows like this, the mood is just as important as the writing. And if we're talking about stories that prioritize both, there's really no better time to talk about Mubi. Mubi is a curated streaming service dedicated to spotlighting exceptional cinema from around the world. Each film is hand-selected by their team. No suits or algorithms making these choices, just thoughtful curation from real people who genuinely love film and quality storytelling. If you're someone who values strong themes, striking visuals, and stories that leave an impact, Mubi offers a library that's refreshingly intentional. Every film here earns its place. It's not a filler catalog built around whatever IP was cheapest to license. Like Nicole Kidman, they're putting in the work, elevating underrepresented voices, backing bold storytelling, and genuinely supporting the future of film. If you need a place to start, I recently really enjoyed watching Witches and Bird. Very different vibes, both very worth the watch. You can try Mubi free for 30 days at Mubi.com/Sloan. That's MUBI.com/Sloan. And get a whole month of great cinema for free. This notion of aestheticizing pain carries over into so many aspects of our culture, including how we drink. The type of drink you order and how much liquor you can hold can be seen as a direct reflection of how strong, weak, cool, or lame you are. In our society, different drinks have different connotations. Sugary, sweet, easy-to-drink cocktails are inferior to slow-sipping, full-bodied liquors that are harder to drink or burn your throat. Media perpetuates this messaging everywhere. We see it in music, where Mariah Carey makes fun of a woman for ordering a fruity little drink and being unable to shoot whiskey. We see it on television.
It's great. It's a little pink, you know.
Well, Rory's a girl. Girls like pink.
I know. I was just saying.
No one's asking you to wear it. It's not a skirt.
Clear!
Seems like losing me made you cooler.
We see it in movies. There's a running joke in David Fincher's Zodiac, where Jake Gyllenhaal's character, Robert Graysmith, routinely orders a bright blue drink in a hurricane glass that comes with a colorful umbrella and kebabbed fruit garnishes, described later in the script as a blue, girly drink.
It's an aqua velva.
After making fun of him, Paul Avery, played by RDJ, tries the drink.
We wouldn't make fun of it if you tried it.
And we smash cut to the next scene where they've both drunk several more. The joke depends on irony. The humor only works if the drink Robert orders is strange or unusual for someone like him to order. Or more recently, A Simple Favor. Blake Lively's character, Emily, prepares a gin martini, a strong, bitter drink that has sophisticated and timeless connotations and was specifically chosen to bolster the image they want to present of Emily as a chic, confident, cool girl. In contrast, Anna Kendrick's character, Stephanie, who is described in the script as cute and conservative, and by Emily as a nerd, prefers drinking apple teenies, emblematic of her awkward and less refined personality. Just like the dichotomy in their clothing, hairstyles, cars, and houses, their drink choices serve to magnify how the characters foil each other. So since Zodiac, some of these connotations have changed a little. Instead of sugary drinks being synonymous with women, they've now become more associated with just weakness. So, you know, that's a win, I guess. Yay. Look, I mean, it's all stupid, and you don't have to abide by any of it, but it's hard to deny the messaging is there. Champagne is celebratory. Tequila is a party drink. Bourbon, whiskey, and scotch are masculine. A lot of it is curated marketing. A lot of it is molded by actual history through classism, logic, or accessibility. Like, rum is paired with tropical drinks because the sugarcane it's made of grows in the tropics. But media also plays a defining role in shaping and perpetuating our perception of drinks, and the types of people who drink them.
Would you like another beer, Luke?
Wine is special because there's a cultural and even spiritual element to it that other alcohol doesn't have. Wine carries religious weight. It's the blood of Christ, the only alcohol that's sacred enough to be drunk in church. There's an intellectual hobby around sniffing and swirling and sipping various blends. Wine pairs well with meals and is the only type of alcohol that is perceived to be healthy. Not to mention, it's accessible at various price points, from super cheap to luxuriously expensive. In most states, wine is sold in grocery stores, so it seems somehow less shameful or illicit illicit than going to a liquor store, and more productive. You can pick up a bottle of wine while you buy groceries. Obviously, you can get drunk off wine, but wine isn't the fastest way to it, so drinking wine may disguise your intention to really get drunk. Our perception of wine gets even more specific when we talk about red versus white. Red is moodier and sensual, while white wine is more sociable and casual. The differences in their advertising are night and day. Like literally, red wine is visually paired with evenings, while white wine ads are so much brighter and are often set in the daytime. Red wine is associated with date nights and cozy fires, while white wine is commonly presented in front of an ocean or a pool. Like, a glass of Chardonnay by a pool looks crisp, classy, and fun. But put any glass of red wine in that same setting, and the scene changes entirely. Suddenly, alarm bells go off, and I'm wondering, do they have a problem? And maybe they shouldn't be drinking while they're swimming. It's a media-based double standard I didn't even know I had, but it lends to this very real belief that red wine is seen as more serious. White wine is more acceptable to drink earlier in the day. It's easier to drink, but it's also easier to overlook. For these reasons, wine is largely perceived as an acceptable form of alcoholism. Because really, if Claire Dunphy was drinking vodka sodas instead of wine throughout Modern Family, would we as an audience take her drinking problem more seriously? Now, in full transparency, right about here, I was planning on jumping down the TikTok rabbit hole, going through mommy juice hashtags, finding specific accounts, and showing concrete examples of how these influencers romanticize thinly veiled alcoholism. The TV equivalent are comedy movies like Bad Moms and dramedy shows like Dead to Me. The humor essentially boils down to these characters going against the grain, being reckless and relatable, and as Netflix calls them, savage. But there's a darkness to this subgenre that sets them apart from traditional sitcom wine moms. These moms aren't making quips to cue up a laugh track or hit a joke count. They're trying to create an identity beyond the role of motherhood and the responsibilities that come with it. This specific humor is the pinnacle of wine mom culture on social media, where mommy influencers turn a coping mechanism into a quirky, almost defiant identity. As hard of a watch as TikTok wine moms are for me, I don't know, it's difficult to personally criticize any of them, because at their core, the intentions of social media wine moms, despite leaning on an unhealthy substance and trivializing a real problem, are to look for a community to validate their feelings because they're in pain, or to try to create a sense of self in a world that makes them feel like mom is the only brand or person they can be. What I'm more interested in seeing is how these depictions affect people, if they do at all. And that's not an easy question to answer. Beatnik Allen Ginsberg is thought to have said, "Whoever controls the media, the images, controls the culture." And yet, it's not like there's even a consensus among the people who tell these stories. Not every TV writer believes that TV negatively affects or influences audiences, but many of them do. A substantial portion of my video, Morality and BoJack Horseman, explores how much the series creator Raphael Bob Waxberg struggled with the show's effects and influence on its viewers. Raphael told HuffPost, "I do feel like we have a responsibility in this industry, and as creators of pop culture, to really think about the messages and stories we're putting out there. And I don't believe most people take that responsibility seriously enough. I'm not for censorship, but I am for being accountable and really being considerate of what the stories are doing and the effects that they have." He felt that some of those effects, in BoJack Horseman's case, which stemmed from many viewers' idolization of its toxic main character, were damaging and conveyed a message Raphael never intended to send. To combat these perceptions, he actively worked to address them through the show's writing. But not everyone in the writer's room agreed that they were harmful. Raphael said, "We actually got in an argument in the writer's room because I said, I think showing something on screen inherently glamorizes it. And if you're not actively fighting against it, consciously or not, you are glamorizing that." When asked what the opposing argument would be, Raphael replied, "Nick Adams, who wrote episode 4 where we talked about this issue, didn't agree with that. He said, I don't think that's right, and I think people are smart enough to distance themselves from entertainment, and I think it's overstated how much pop culture affects people." In the end, they found a middle ground. Raphael said, "What we landed on is that maybe glamorizes isn't the right word, but normalizes is. That by portraying something on TV, it inherently normalizes it. I don't know if everyone is thinking about that when they are writing shows with violence, shows with characters taking their lives, shows with SA, or shows just with bad dudes. Cops that break the rules but get results. I don't think that is a thing that should be normalized in our society. I think that's dangerous." Honestly, I didn't include this quote in my video because I thought it was too didactic, or might be received poorly. When discussion turns to the negative effects of media, reactions can be strong and polarizing, which is fair. It makes sense why people are so averse to the notion that TV and film impacts how we see the world. I mean, sure, no one wants to believe they can be manipulated, but I don't actually think most of it is an ego thing. What it really is, what might be more knee-jerking for some people, is that when you acknowledge negative effects exist, you're inadvertently at the beginning of a much scarier conversation. At risk of being misunderstood, which is always a little inevitable, I feel the need to clarify. I'm not saying someone should pry the glass of wine out of Reese Witherspoon's hands if season 3 of Big Little Lies ever actually gets made. Jury's still out. But that doesn't mean we should pretend media doesn't impact us at all. No, Hannibal is not going to make you want to eat someone, but there have to be levels to this thing. There are media theories we could pick apart, but when I think about the effects of media, positive and negative, I picture an iceberg. Everything above the water is how we're affected on a conscious level. This is when we, the viewer, are a willing and fully conscious participant, wanting to emulate something about a show, or character style or interests because we think they're cool or attractive. Like ordering a Manhattan or a Cosmopolitan because Don Draper and Carrie Bradshaw drink them. Or how Scandal fans quadrupled Crate & Barrel's sales of the Camille wine glass because it's the exact kind Olivia Pope has. Just on their website alone, there are 467 customers crediting the character in their reviews, which is actually insane. If that many fans took the time to write reviews, I cannot imagine how many bought them. Oh wait, I can actually, because I used to work at Crate & Barrel, and the amount of times I almost broke these glasses is honestly innumerable. Fun fact, they're one of the hardest wine glasses to carry a ton of in your hands. They're huge and awkward and wide, and everyone wanted them all of the time. Below the water is semi-conscious. This is when we have automatic responses or beliefs, but consciously understand they're directly tied to media. Like when you're watching a moody drama and you pour a glass of wine, or you finish an episode of Scandal and find yourself eating popcorn for dinner. Maybe you don't realize why you're doing it in the moment, but the show or movie that inspired the action is still fully accessible to you. Further down, this is where media affects our perceptions of how the world works, also known as our descriptive norms. Like people who watch a lot of true crime believe the world is more dangerous than it is. When it comes to wine moms, a study published last March found that wine moms who had previously seen wine-drinking mothers on TV were more likely to believe that drinking wine is a common behavior in moms in general, even if it's not. Interestingly, the moms in the study who didn't previously watch wine moms on TV were less likely to believe that moms drinking wine was common. Finally, at the bottom of the iceberg is our subconscious. These are media-ingrained tidbits we inherently think are facts, whether they're accurate or not. Like, you have to wait 24 hours to report a missing person.
I've been missing for like 12 hours.
12 hours. It's not a missing person until it's at least 24 hours. Have you ever seen CSI?
Is that true? No. Or, in jail you only get one phone call. Or, ironically, wine is good for your heart. This message was conveyed to Americans in an episode of 60 Minutes in 1991. Specifically that, the reason French people don't get coronary heart disease, despite their diets that are high in saturated fats, is solely because of red wine.
The explanation of the paradox may lie in this inviting glass.
Now, today, there's a lot of research mostly pointing out flaws with that theory, but at the time when the episode aired, red wine sales in the US doubled the next year, and this idea that wine is healthy was permanently cemented in many people's minds. Ironically, this association would go on to mold and bolster and validate the wine moms we see on TV.